Ladies and gentlemen, with such a heavyweight who has put this whole book together, please let's put our hands together for Miss Taaka Awori.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Atu. I love the way Atu started this conversation and the first thing I was praying is that he would not ask me how to say leadership in my language. Because that would have been a big fat zero. So Farida, at least you saved me, eh? But I thought, what a wonderful way to start, because this is about leadership in Africa. And this is about how we define and see leadership on this continent. But let me start more formally. You can see I just jumped into the conversation. So let me go back to my formal speech. Good evening, distinguished guests. You know that's not me, eh? You know that's not me, eh? Let me just start by saying this. So all here who are my family in this house, wave your hands. My family, Who are all my colleagues in this house? There you go. Those who I've worked with in this house, wave your hands. So really, I see myself this evening among friends, family, and colleagues. And really, what I'm sharing with you today is the product of my work with so many of you. So I think it's important that as we begin this launch, and I'm so excited to see many of you here today, as we begin this launch, I share a little bit about the book, because after all, many of you have not read the book yet. So this book, Leadership in Africa Redefined, is really a practical guide on leadership in Africa. And you'll be hearing more about the book. So I think what matters now is I tell you why I wrote this book. And there are 3 key reasons I wrote this book. The first reason is all of you in this room. What I see in front of me are ethical, courageous, empowering leaders. I know it. I've seen it. This is not in theory. I've worked with so many of you in this room. But the reality is, the narrative I was hearing about leadership was not about all of you all in this room. So I was frustrated. I was frustrated that the stories about the impact you are having in transforming not just Ghana, but many of you, this continent, was not being told. Hence the subtitle of the book, Untold Stories. Because what I was finding was that the narrative on leadership in Africa was one of the selfish, egotistical leaders, often because of the bad behavior, because of a few politicians. And yet I kept seeing, when I looked at all of you all, I realized that was only half of the story. The other half of the story is what this book is about. It's about the leadership that all of you have displayed and are continuing to display. So instead of complaining, I remembered the African proverb that states, I know most of you know this one, until the lion tells his side of the story, the tale of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. That's it, Taaka, stop complaining and start writing. Start writing about the people in this room. So that was one of the first reasons. The second reason I wrote this story is finding that there was an absence of leadership material relevant to the context in which we practice leadership. Now I see what was out there was good. You know, stuff you find in John Maxwell, all good stuff. Stuff you'll find in the Harvard Business Review, all good stuff. But we all know that leadership is highly situational. Leadership depends on the context. So while there might be some universal principles, the application of it really depends on the context. And I was feeling, wait a minute, we need some material that speaks to our context. So that was the second reason for writing the book, to make sure there was material that spoke to the practice and all the unique challenges of leadership in our context. The third reason I wrote this book is for the next generation of leaders. Now, let's face it, our current leadership positions are primarily held by those of us in our 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond. So I would just ask you to take a look around this room and see the ages in the room. So I have my children over there and there, young ones. But you can see most of the leaders I'm looking at in this room, we're in our 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond. The reality is, sooner or later, we will have to pass the baton on to the next generation of leaders. And I'm worried because the baton we are passing on is not a great one. What we're passing on are societies fraught with inequalities, societies vulnerable to the ravage of climate change, and societies vulnerable to insecurity and conflict. Without strong leadership, the next generation will find it very hard to manage what we're passing on. So while this book is for all of us who are currently exercising leadership, as I wrote it, I really had in mind that next generation who will take up the baton that we pass on. So those are the 3 reasons I wrote this book. What you will find in the book is 14 principles that through my practice of leadership in the last 10 years, I have found are key to the type of leadership that is required on this continent. And then I use the stories of 30 outstanding leaders, some of whom are in this room, and their stories to illustrate some of these principles. And the leaders I selected are quite diverse. From different parts of the continent, it was diversity in terms of gender, age, sector, language. It was really trying to mix them up. And it was quite interesting. When I started, I immediately started finding leaders in Ghana. And I was going so fast with my Ghana list. I was like, hey, Taaka, you better stop. It's not only in Ghana you find amazing leaders. But just to say, there was no shortage in Ghana. I literally had to hold myself back in Ghana. And today you will meet, I'm so honored you will meet some of those from Ghana who are featured in this book, in the panel discussion we'll have shortly. But let me stop here by saying that, honored guests, dear friends and colleagues, the time has come when we need to stop defining our leadership by the worst of us. We need to start defining our leadership by the best of us, those of you in this room. And this book offers concrete and practical ways to do that. I will end by thanking all the amazing leaders who shared their stories with me, those who are in this room and those who are sitting in other parts of the continent. I must sincerely thank the Open Society Institute for West Africa, OSF, or SIWA, who very generously provided funding for this book. I'm deeply grateful to them. When I shared my vision for this book, they were willing to put money behind it. I would like to thank Jeffrey Samaganda of Action Wealth Publishing, who kind of guided us through this writing thing. This writing business, no be small thing. Oh. Yeesh, huh? So I really thank him for that. I want to thank, do you see them all? My amazing team at Busara. You rock, you rock. And particularly Donas. Is Donas here yet? Huh? Is Donas here? Donas, where are you? Donas, wave. This is a very special man because when I did all the interviews, I needed to have them transcribed. You know, behind a book is all the grunt work that needs to be done. And Donas did all the transcription for me. So it's all these unsung heroes and sheroes who are so key in final products of this. So Donas, thank you for being you. And finally, thank you all for being the leaders this continent needs and deserves. So thank you. Back to you. That's you.
Please, you can do it better for Taaka Awori. Doing her little dance.